All right, good afternoon, everybody. I am Sam Thompson, and we are rounding down our professional development series for our teacher aides and monitors. So I do appreciate all of you for sticking around for this session today. For someone who you should be familiar with, again, I know a lot of you knew Debbie Gerard, who did our last session, and a lot of you are familiar with the folks who have done our sessions up to date because we're trying to make sure that there are people from the district that you are familiar with. And today is no different. Today we have our pre-K and primary CSE chair, Ms. Gina Callesano, with us. And thank you. And Gina will be talking to us about dealing with difficult behaviors and dealing with students with difficult behaviors. And that means all students, right? Not just students with disabilities, but our non-classified students as well, and offering some strategies on approaching scenarios and situations we have all seen with some of the best strategies she's put together from the research. So without further ado, here is Ms. Gina Callesano.
Thank you, Thompson. So thank you all for signing up today. Thank you for coming. This is nice to see so many faces. Some of you are familiar, some of you I don't know, so welcome. And I hope that we get to talk a little bit. I get to know some of you better. I chose this topic today when I saw that Dr. Thompson's office had put out a survey and behavior was a topic of interest. I was really excited about that. It is a passion of mine. Before I became chairperson here, I was a teacher in the district for 18 years. And I worked in a variety of settings across the buildings with students who had the most challenging behaviors. So I've been in your shoes, I've been in the classroom, I've worked with many, many talented and amazing women, and I value the work that you do every day. You truly are the backbone of your classroom and of the building. You know the kids, and they rely on you, as do the teachers and the staff that you work with. So thank you for coming today. I hope that you get some strategies out of our conversation, and I'm excited to share this with you. I always start with confidentiality. Confidentiality is tremendous. We are working with students. I ask that, and I've always asked, that the students that we work with are treated as our own. If you have a child and they have a tough day at school and somebody there knows who they are, you would hope that they don't go home or to the supermarket or to the baseball field and talk about your child. And so we ask the same here of everyone who works with our kids. It's not unusual to go home and talk about your day with your family. Maybe something silly happens, but if you do, please be mindful, keep the student's name out of the story because they are still somebody's child, and we want them to be respected, their families to be respected. So that's always my big ask. Okay, positive behavior support, also known as PBS. You may hear that as a buzz term or phrase here or out in the world of special education. According to the Association of Positive Behavior Supports, PBS is a set of research-based strategies used to increase quality of life and decrease problem behavior by teaching new skills and making changes in a person's environment. What does that mean? And what's most important in the definition? I'm not going to stand here and quote research and definitions for, I just want to let you know that, but I did pull this one because I think that it's important. Making a change in a person's environment and teaching new skills. Two of the key ideas in positive behavior supports, okay? When we see kids with challenging behaviors, whether they are classified or non-classified, take a look at the environment, okay? See what's going on. Are they in a large, overwhelming cafeteria where the noise level is just too high or the commotion is too much? Are they in a cafeteria where they can tolerate the noise and the commotion, but somebody that they had a fight with on the playground yesterday just walked in? There are things in the environment that may not stand out to us initially, but exist and do trigger behaviors. Replacing behaviors. Research tells us that we are not able to change a behavior without replacing it with a new one. So if we're going to teach kids to stop doing something, we need to teach them what to do instead. So that's what I mean when I say replacing a behavior. These are just a couple of examples. I'm going to just run through them and highlight what it was that was changed in the scenario. When an adult's attention is withdrawn or focused on other children, Lisa makes noises. Her behavior results in the adult talking to her and moving closer to her. Tell Lisa when you will be unavailable for extended periods. I'm going to be with Johnny now. Interact with Lisa periodically from across the room, okay? So this was an environmental shift. The team that worked with Lisa noticed that she was making noise. They took a look around at the pattern, like when is she making noise? When is this happening the most? And they noticed that it was when the adults were talking to the other children. So she was trying to get attention, right? So what did they do? They told her, when it's your turn, we'll talk with you, right? Simple, but not so simple if they were just focusing on Lisa telling her to stop making noise, right? Because they're not really looking around at what else is happening. We're gonna talk a lot later in the presentation about the ways kids gain access to attention, either in a negative or in a positive way. And this just happens to be, we're talking about it now, an example. And I say often in special education that kids are going to get the attention in a negative way if we don't figure out a way to give it to them in a positive way. So we need to address it either way. So just keep that in mind because they're taking the time anyway. We just want it to be positive. So just keep that in your head because it's going to be something that I keep going back to. I'm going to skip over this one just because it also was an environmental change and go to this one because here the team changed the environment and this is an example of replacing the behavior. When Donna finishes an activity early, she bites her fingernails and cuticles. This gives her another form of stimulation. Provide Donna with something she enjoys doing when she finishes her activities early. Handheld games, crafts, things like that. So here they looked at the environment and they looked to replace the behavior. That's kind of, it's easier to do with a sensory seeking behavior, and we'll talk about that more later too. Oftentimes you may see students in the buildings who are walking around with fidgets, they're walking around with tubes, they're walking around with sensory balls. Those things are all to address other behaviors and to replace something that was probably not preferred. Sometimes kids, this is gross, but at the elementary level you'll appreciate this. Sometimes kids pick their nose, sometimes they play with their spit, sometimes they're doing things that are gross, and we need to figure out what is it that they are looking for and how can we replace it. And that's when you would see things like those fidgets and things like that in their hands. There are many reasons for behavior, and I'm going to say that twice. There are many reasons for behavior. And the reason that I say that way is because oftentimes you'll come into a situation and you'll say, something will have happened, right? A major behavior may have occurred, and you'll say, well, what happened? And someone who may have been in the vicinity will say, nothing. Well, something triggered a child's behavior. No, he was just sitting here and, he threw the table. It's because the environment is happening around him, and maybe the person reporting genuinely saw nothing. Maybe they just got caught off guard and saw the table. And in your mind, you think nothing happens. But something in that child's mind happens. And I go back to, did somebody enter the room that they don't get along with? Are they not feeling well? And they just can't tell you, they got a pain in their stomach. Is the work that they're doing, they got to question number 3 and they don't know the answer and they're embarrassed, or they don't have the language to express that they're not able to continue. So something happened. We just need to be able to identify it. There are many reasons. Disability is certainly a reason. There are 13 disability categories. I highlighted the disability categories where we see the most behaviors, okay, as compared to the others. Our kids who are classified as other health impaired, that would be a student who has some type of medical problem or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, okay? And I'm gonna pause here because when I talk about ADHD, I call this our invisible disability. This is the one that we can't always see, right? Students who have ADHD are not wearing a sign around their neck saying, I have ADHD. They are exhibiting impulsive behaviors. They are exhibiting lack of or poor judgment. They are disorganized. They have a hard time with executive functioning issues where they are not able to organize their materials or get from one place to the next. Sometimes they lie. Okay, these are the things that when people see them, that's what they say about them. They say, they'll report, this, I have a student in my class, he's disorganized, he lies, he's distracted, he's hitting the kid next to him, he's tapping the pencil, he's getting up for a tissue and going to the bathroom 10 times. That's what they're seeing. They're not seeing that there's a disability there. So I take time to really talk that one through because it's not like the others where we see autism, right? We see the self-stimulatory behaviors, we see the lack of language, we see the inability to make those social connections at times. We see emotional disturbance, a little bit more on the invisible end, but we still see students who are doing things like trying to set fires, trying to intentionally hurt other kids. There's more significant behaviors that we would say, like, I think there's reason for concern here. Intellectual disability, multiple disability, traumatic brain injury. These disabilities also more visible. And when we can see something, we tend to be more empathetic towards it, right? We tend to say like, oh, okay, they need this because they are autistic, right? But we don't say that with kids who are other health impaired. We just might see them as a typical kid who's doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So I think it's important to be mindful of that. So disability can account for behavior. Mental health, right? Kids are struggling with mental health for a variety of reasons, also can contribute to negative behaviors. Trauma, anything that may have happened to them, unfortunately, in their life, the death of a close family member, a fire, something tragic, any kind of trauma certainly could result in negative behavior. And the invisible backpack. It's not a disability. It's what they're carrying with them to school every single day that we may not know about. They may have divorce. They may have a death in the extended family. They may have siblings that they're not getting along with. They may have somebody that's bullying them at home. All of the, not at home, in school that we don't know about. All these things that they don't want to talk about, that they're coming to school every day, we're expecting them to come ready to learn, and they're not sitting down at their desk saying to their friends like, oh, hey, guess what? I had a big fight with my dad this morning before I came to school, and I don't know what's going to happen when I get home, but now I have to do my math. They're not saying that. They may just put their head down and look like they don't want to work. They may get up and run out of the classroom and nobody know. Again, this would be like if something where I would say what happened and the people around them may say nothing, but something happened. And we talk about those things that happen as setting events, like what may have happened before a student gets to school that could be impacting their day. And I attribute it to adults. I try anyway to make the connection to the kids, right? Like you have a fight with your spouse or your kids didn't get out of the house easily in the morning and it was stressful. And then you get here And the expectation is that you're ready to work. And you have to figure out a way to regroup, have some coffee, talk to your friend. You know, we all know what we need to do to reset from a tough morning to get through the day. But do our kids, do they have those strategies? So here we are, and we have to be mindful of where they're coming from, how to support them, and not stop there. We need to teach them the tools and the strategies to keep going when we're not there, right? Because they're not going to be with us in Farmingdale forever. They're going to go through Farmingdale High School, and off they go, and they're going to have to show up to work and figure out how to work when they're stressed. So all of these things could account for behavior. If at any point you need to stop me and want to share something, ask a question, please feel free. Okay. Treat the symptoms, not the diagnosis. When we see a student and we know he has a disability, or we know there's something that has gone on at home or in their life that's affecting the behavior, we need to really look at what the behaviors are. So this is a time where I say, forget what the classification is. Forget what the diagnosis is. Forget what happened. Be with that child in the moment and talk to them about what it is that the behavior is, what behavior is happening and how it's interfering with their day and what they need to do to move past it. So sometimes, the diagnosis is important and we need to know so that we can see where to address things, and sometimes we need to put it aside and really just target the actual behavior. A student's behavior is never personal. Oftentimes, you will feel disrespected. You will feel that a child is being defiant or avoiding certain things, and it's all related to the work that you're trying to do with them because you love these kids and you come every day and you're committed to them, and then all of a sudden they're punching you or hitting you or kicking you or pulling your hair or cursing at you. It's not you. There's something going on that if we plucked you up and put somebody else there, the behavior is still going to occur. And rapport. Rapport is so important, and we're going to talk about that later. Developing a rapport with a kid and getting to know them, things that they like and things that are important to them, what their family is like, goes a long way when a kid is in crisis. Okay? And I'm not saying that if you happen to be sitting next to them and they are out of control, that you may not get knocked into. That may happen, but the chances of diffusing a behavior or a crisis situation when you have a positive rapport with a kid are a lot higher than if you're just sitting next to them all day trying to tell them to get through their schedule and come on, and so really try to embrace those moments when you can get to know them on a more personal level. Behavior always serves as a means of communication, and I'm talking about behavior in a very broad sense today. Normally, and for those of you that know me, I'm doing a lot of talking about behavior for kids on the autism spectrum and how that looks in our 611 program and in our 811 program. Today, I know that this is an audience here at Howard and also across the district of many people who are working in different capacities. So I know that I'm bouncing around a little bit and I'm talking about kids with disabilities and significant behaviors. And I'm also trying to incorporate behavior for kids who have trauma and who are non-classified and kids who are involved with the deans at all levels. So if you have any questions or you want me to tease out or drill down a little bit deeper as we're going through this, I'm trying to give you the disability version and the version for kids who are dealing with mental health and have still exhibiting serious behaviors, but for other reasons. Either way, behavior is always a means of communication. So if a child is completely nonverbal and not able to communicate anything, or if a child is extremely verbal and can communicate everything, behavior is still a means. They're trying to communicate something. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they frustrated? Are they sick? So try to keep that in mind when you see a behavior like what is really happening and what are they trying to communicate to me. Going to share a video. I watched it before. It never gets old for me. I hope you enjoy it. It is a video about a man who, and his name is DJ, and he was the leader of a gang in Louisiana in high school. And he talks about the way a teacher influenced, and she's also on the video, influenced his life just by giving him attention. And this is where I go back to kids get attention regardless of whether or not we're giving it to them in a positive way or a negative way. They're going to get it. So if you have a student in your classroom who's constantly interrupting and looking for attention, and somebody says, ignore him, and they want to do planned ignoring, and that's definitely a strategy and part of a behavior plan at times, I would say, yes, ignore him, but don't stop there. Teach him what is appropriate and how to gain the attention in a positive way. Because remember, when I first started, I said you can't teach a behavior, you can't just eliminate it. You have to replace it with something else. So if you're going to try to ignore a child and expect the behavior to decrease, chances are it's going to increase because they're tapping their pencil and they're doing their thing and you're ignoring it, and so now they're like stamping their foot, like, hey, that wasn't, now they're gonna up the ante. And you're still ignoring it. Now they're like gonna get up and walk out of the classroom. And now the problem just escalated. So if they're tapping the pencil and you believe that the function or the reason is because they're looking for attention, that would be a great time to say, you're tapping your pencil, it's distracting Maria here, you need to stop, I'm happy to sit with you. And get through, maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're done, maybe it's too hard, maybe it's too easy. There's probably a reason that they're trying to get your attention and they have no idea how to do it appropriately. But if you just get in there and see what it is, you're going to eliminate all that's about to come and teach them that they don't have to do that in a negative way to get you to pay attention, that they have to just be appropriate. So here's DJ.
My primary goal for coming to C2 was to maximize my SAT and ACT C2 help me get into the program that I want.
My name is DJ Baptiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana. I was raised by my grandmother. I was born to a 14-year-old. My name is DJ Baptiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana.
He had been in school out isolation, out of school suspension.
My name is DJ Baptiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana. I was raised by my grandmother. I was born to a 14-year-old mom and a 16-year-old dad, so they were young. They really weren't able to make too many decisions. I was very defiant, though. I hated it. I loved to get in trouble because of getting in trouble got you attention. I was the type of student where I loved attention, and I did whatever it took to get attention. I was the leader of a gang, and let me tell you why, because in a gang, we got that sense of security and a sense of belonging. We feel like these my homies, they gonna take care of me, they got me, no matter what. So they give us that.
Did you see how he said, I did whatever I had to do to get attention? And that's gonna be what you hear, and keep that in, like, frame that. He's going to do whatever he has to do. And think of the kids that we know, and we know who they are. They're going to do whatever it is that they have to do to get the attention, whether or not it's negative or positive.
That sense of belonging, fight. That was our only option. We had a disagreement, we fought. Whether we playing basketball, playing hide and go seek, it didn't matter. If it's a disagreement, we fight. So I was raised like that, and that was instilled in my head. It wasn't no other option. You fight. You got to be violent. And I'm gonna tell you, we like to fight in school because we know we had a crowd. So we continued to get kicked out of school. We jumped people. I mean, just so much violence. I never was a second thought. When it came to my head, that's what I did. If I wanted to fight, boom, I'm fighting. If you're close enough where I can put my hands on you, I'm hitting you in your mouth. That's just how I was. I did go to juvenile twice.
My name is Donna Porter, and I teach public speaking at Picayune Memorial High School in Picayune, Mississippi.
I knew. I sat back and thought about it. When you late to something, everybody looks at you.
And all of a sudden, the door flings open, and this huge student that I've never seen in my life walks in and says,
"What's up?" And she looked, and I said, "What's up?" You know, and I just had the attention of the class that fast.
My first thought is, why did this happen to me? On the first day of school when I'm trying to set the tone. And then I thought, I've got this. Thank goodness I've got this. But to be able to access my brilliance, I have to take a deep breath, stay composed, and watch him, look at his nonverbal language, because all behavior is purposeful.
She said, "Well, I noticed you're late to my room. There's no problem because you probably couldn't find it." I just kind of looked at her with this crazy look like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, "Well, have a seat." And I looked at her, I said, "Do you have any kids?"
And I said, "Well, actually, your name is DJ, Mr. Baptiste. I have two, and I just informed the class about it, but because you missed my room, you didn't hear. So are you married?" he said. And I said, "Actually, I just told the class I've been married for 30 years.
I stepped back and said, 30 years? Folded my arms, looked up and down and said, "Don't you think it's time for a change?" Now, at that point in time right there, I expected her to get red in the face, lose her composure, run to her desk, get a referral, write me up, and send me out. I was ready for that. That's what I expected. And now that I've learned the brain seeks patterns. So that was the pattern that my brain was seeking. You be disrespectful, you get sent out of class, but you get the attention that you want. She didn't do that. She looked at me, she smiled, and said,
Do you go to the doctor when you're well?" And he looked at me very funny. He said, "No, you go when you're sick." I said, "You come to school and you know everything?" He said, "I guess not. I guess you come supposedly to learn." I said, "Well, you've got a lot to learn, and I can't wait to teach you." And then I left him with that feeling of angst. And then I said, "You know what I noticed more importantly about you? You have charisma."
"Charisma?" You know, she was like, "Do you know what that means?" I said, "I'm cute." And everybody in the class laughed. And she was like, something like that. She was like, "But you just know how to work a room, you know?" And I said, I was just listening to her. She was like, she threw me off because she started talking good about me after I wanted her to be kind of get into a power struggle with me. That's what I wanted.
And I said, "So I've been thinking in the last few seconds, I give jobs to my students in high school. Do you know anything about jobs in school?" He said, "Oh, yeah. In kindergarten, I was the line leader." I said, "We don't have a line leader in high school, but we have appropriate jobs. And I usually take a week or so to figure out what job would best fit what student. I do a multiple intelligence survey, and we tell a little bit about ourselves. But you know what, DJ? I don't need to do all that with you, because you're innately designed to be a greeter." He's like, "A greeter? What's that?" And I said, "A greeter is someone that will stand at my door every morning."
As everybody come in, I get to shake everybody's hand, appropriately hug the girls. That threw my mind off. And then she said, on top of that, I get to come in front of her class and have my own session for 2 to 3 minutes. How does that sound? That's what she said. I said, "It sounds too good to be true, so let me run it back to you." I said, "So you mean to tell me I get to stand outside your classroom, shake everybody's hand who comes by, then on top of that, I get to come in front of the class and have my own session?" She was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I want, you know what I'm saying, I want to try this." She was like, "But it's one catch." And I remember I dropped my head like I knew it was something, you know.
All you have to do is be on time.
Because if you're my greeter, that means you have to be the first one here so everybody get a chance to see you and shake your hand before they walk in my classroom. And I just remember shaking my head like, I try this, you know. I see what it's something here I can't tell yet, but it was something there, and I just remember thinking I tried it. And she said, "Okay, pick up your backpack that you threw down and go have a seat." And that was the first day of my new life.
Day 2, I'm standing in the hall and I see this mass of people just partying, and the only figurative language I can think of is Moses parting the Red Sea. And here comes this huge guy, and I hear these words that are so important for anybody watching this video. Everybody move out of my way. I've got to get to Miss Porter's class on time because, listen, I have a job to do. I have a job to do. A disconnected child is a discouraged child. He needed to be encouraged, and every day he stood from day 2. He had been in the criminal justice center, he had been expelled from the alternative school, he had been in school isolation, out of school suspension. Nothing worked. All he needed was to be encouraged. And he became my greeter. We usually have jobs just every 9 weeks, but by a unanimous vote of the class, he became the year-long greeter because they felt nobody could do the job as well as DJ.
I feel like the experiences that I went through in my life was meant to happen so I can come back and help kids, help teachers understand. I feel like I have a gift that I need to share, a testimony that I would like to share, and I know I can help kids along with teachers. Oftentimes teachers get into it with students, they have problems with students because they don't have the skills. And I feel like anytime I can help a teacher get the skills, she has a chance to save a life. And I often tell teachers, I want you to have the same success story that Ms. Porter had. I want you to have that student that you walk down the aisle with to that graduation. I want you to have that student that say he owes his life to you.
So I love that story. I don't claim that every child that you make a greeter will resolve all of his behavior problems, but what I do say is that if we develop a positive rapport, if we look to find the reason why a child is seeking attention, and to find ways to connect with them and replace those attention-seeking behaviors, our outcomes will be much more positive. Is there anything anybody wanted to say about the video or anything personal experience that you've had with a student? Okay, functions of behavior. We have to remember that when we look at kids, we're looking at them all as on a case-by-case basis, so the functions and the reasons for their behavior will be very different, so we need to choose a lens, right? Are we looking at a child with a disability? Which disability are we looking at? Are we looking at a child who has had trauma? Are we looking at a child who has something going on at home? These are questions that are ongoing, and I'm repeating them intentionally so that hopefully you'll start to take that home with you, and when you look at the kids that you see in the hallways or in your classrooms, you start to ask yourself these same questions. Once you identify who the child is and what possibly may be happening for them, look at the behavior. Okay? When you look at the behavior, you can look at these 4 functions and tease out a little bit further. Always quick, when I walk into a classroom and I do like a quick assessment of a child in crisis, like is there some kind of medical thing happening that I am not aware of? Are they sick? Are they hurt? Is there a medical history that I should think about, and is that happening in front of me? If no, I go on to the next thing. Is this attention seeking, right? We all know our attention seekers. They, like I said, they're making a lot of noise. They're coming in, like DJ, coming into the classroom late. There are class clowns. If there are kids who have more cognitive impairments, they're still seeking attention in their own way. They might be running up to you, they might be pushing you. And they like the response that they get because they're getting the attention, right? Like you're saying, oh no, go sit down. It needs to be redirected. Is it sensory? Those are the behaviors that we talked about earlier. The spitting, the licking, maybe they're banging their heads. They could be picking their nose. These are things that don't appear to have a function to us. They're certainly not attention seeking because it doesn't matter to them whether or not we're paying attention to them. The question for that I always ask is, if this child were in a room by themselves, would they still be doing this? And if the answer is yes, then chances are it's sensory. Are they, sometimes you might see stereotypical self-stimulatory behaviors, okay? You might see kids like making noise by their ears, like it's something that they're doing feels or they sees or sounds good to them that makes it continue. Those are, I would say, are easiest to identify, but are trickiest to respond to, because you can't always provide that same stimulation that they're getting just on their own. Tangible. Are they looking for something? Do they want access to an iPad, a computer, a break? And I would say if the answer is yes, figure out a way to give it to them on your terms, right? Because they're gonna get it anyway. They're taking it, they're running with it. All these things are happening that are not necessary. Figure out a way. If it's a math sheet that you need them to complete, and there's 10 problems, and they are having a fit because they can't get to problem number 10, so they're just throwing in the towel and having a tantrum and saying, I want the iPad, tell them, let's get through question 1 and 2, and then you can have the iPad or whatever it is. You can have a break. And then eventually you'll get them to do 3, and then you'll get them to do 4. But I say start small and then reward them, because right now you're not getting anything out of them. You're getting just a behavior. So even if you get 1 correct response, it's better than where you are. We have to meet the kids where they are. This is where I say, would you give an ice pack to a student with a bloody nose? No, you would give them a tissue. Because if you're trying to solve or respond to a behavior where the function is different, you're not going to be able to get to the heart of the behavior, right? If you're trying to hand a kid who is seeking attention a fidget spinner, it's not going to cut it. He doesn't want this fidget spinner. He wants your attention. So that's why it's important to identify the function before you respond. And I've seen cases where, with all good intentions, people are trying to respond to behavior, and they're asking the student, like, well, what do you want? Do you want a break? Do you want the iPad? Do you want a snack? And so they're giving every response that they know of that a child might like, but they're not looking at the function. The kid has a headache, a snack, a break, and a fidget spinner, it's not going to do the trick. So we need to really be mindful and take that moment of pause when we're looking at our kids who are engaging in negative behaviors or in crisis, to do a quick assessment. You know, who's this kid and what is the function here? And you're not going to nail it the first time every time. You might have to say, okay, I tried this, it didn't work, let me try something else. Maybe that's not quite the function. Positive behavior support strategies. Appropriate use of language. Less is always more when you're talking to a kid who's having a negative behavior or engaging in crisis. I can tell you firsthand, with working with kids who are in crisis, they can't hear you. They absolutely cannot hear you. So any nonverbal cue, like your finger to your mouth, or if you have visual supports that you can use and pull out. You know, sometimes we walk down the hallway and we have like the rings of visuals just to show them some type of symbol of the desired behavior that we're looking for. If they're a child who's verbal, you can just tell them if they're on the floor, stand up. Clear, simple. It doesn't mean they're always going to stand up. You might need more support, but in terms of communicating with them, less is more, clear and concise, and firm. Watch your tone. I think something we all fall into in a crisis situation is like raising our voice, just because we're heightened. But that really only just heightens the student, so if you can try and stay neutral in your volume, do that. And sometimes kids are trying to escalate you, right? Sometimes they're looking for the reaction. So the more you raise your voice, they're like, oh, I got this, you know, and they keep going. And it's like really just this unintended consequence of an escalation. know the triggers of the students that you're working with. If you're working with a student who requires a 2-minute warning that the activity is going to transition, that the period's going to come to an end, provide that. Because if you don't, something's going to happen that you're going to have to respond to, right? And sometimes people will ask, like, why are we doing all of this for this child when he's not doing this, like what we want him to do? Well, because we have to build and shape behavior. There's no magic in it, and it doesn't change in a day. It does eventually change with the consistency of the plan, and we're going to talk about that. But it's small, and it's gradual, and it's messy. And if you look at the data, if you're taking any kind of data on behavior change, you'll see it's not a straight line. It's not like, oh, well, we gave Johnny a break card, and we told him he could leave the period 2 minutes early, and now he's perfect. It doesn't work like that. It's like, well, we tried X, Y, and Z. X worked. We have to take out Y and Z, and we're going to try something else on Monday. So it's gradual, it's slow, but knowing the triggers always helps. I have students that I know leave the cafeteria a few minutes early because the transition is just too much. We have students that come with headphones on to fire drills because the noise level is too much. We have kids who sit in separate areas because there is another student in the cafeteria or wherever that they don't get along with and maybe they had a fight with. Historically, you have to look at kids on a case-by-case basis and just know what needs to be managed in the environment, I'll say. Use of proximity. When you see, and I'm going to flip a little bit to those kids that I'm talking about who are coming to us with mental health struggles, emotional challenges, trauma, and they're fighting or they're bullying, things like that, and we're seeing more aggression from them or they're cursing. When you talk to them, and I imagine that you have a rapport with them because when you see these kids and they are in crisis, it's not the time to build a rapport. And if I walk down the hallway and I see something, I don't know a lot of the students at Howitt that I didn't have at the elementary school. I'm not intervening. I don't have a rapport with the student. He's clearly in crisis, and I know that it's not personal, but I will escalate it if I go there because he doesn't know me. He's in a heightened state. So what do? I look to find somebody, if it's his aide that's with him, if it's a monitor that knows him from the hallway, if there's a teacher, anybody that might know him that could be able to help, I would recruit them. And then I would hope that everybody's using their body in a way that's respectful, that show, and I mean, like, I don't think that you would be disrespectful, that's not what I mean, but that sends the message to the student of like, I respect that you're having a hard time, and I'm not coming right up into your face to try to talk to you. Like, for your safety, and for the purpose of sending the message of respect to the student, keep a safe distance, right? Like, be mindful of how you appear to them, because think about yourself, and think about how when you're agitated, if somebody's coming up, like right up to me and like, oh, Gina, relax, I'm like, no, like please, you just need that space, and the same thing with the students. And so I would say that if it is your student, you know them best, and to, just keep a safe distance. If an argument does break out with another student, you don't want to be in the line of fire there. Any questions, anything that you want to address before we go forward? The behavior intervention plans are for our more severe behaviors for students who are classified. They've had data that supports the plan that's collected by the building psychologist. You may have seen the psychologist come into the classroom, take some notes, and then they come up with a plan of strategies that are formalized, typically on their IEP, to how to work with the student. It could be a token board, it could be a break card, it could be a slew of different things that are specifically targeting the function of that student's behavior as dictated by the data that the psychologist has collected. So this is more formal. The keys to this, so if you ever walk into a room and the teacher says, like, here's his plan, this is, you know, Johnny's token board, it has to go with him to music, please make sure that Johnny's token board goes with him to music. If you have to go to lunch, ask somebody who's going to be with Johnny while you're at lunch that to make sure that his token board is there. Because the consistency is key. If we're not sending those plans with our kids everywhere they go, they're only learning like, oh, I only have to do this in my class. I don't have to behave in the cafeteria or in the music room, because they need that tangible token board right now to learn. Okay, they're not learning without it, which is why they have it. So if it's not with them, we're not teaching them that this is the expectation of behavior everywhere you go, and with every adult who is with you, okay? And if you leave it behind and you're like, oh, he doesn't really need it, then he just learned that he only has to behave for Sue, but not for Mary, because his token board is the visual support that is required for the teaching of that behavior at this time. He's not going to carry the token board with him out of school when he's 20, but for now, he needs it. So it's important that consistency is key, speaking a common language, making sure that the phrases are positive. Stick with the plan, don't make any change to the plans unless the change has been formally made and communicated in some type of team meeting that the teacher is leading. I know sometimes it feels like, and I've had this happen myself, feels like things are going really well. We have we have Billy and he's working on a timer and we expect him to work for 5 minutes and he's able to work till 10. Unless somebody has changed the amount of time that kid earns the reward, do not stretch that work till 10, because tomorrow he's not going to feel like working till 10 and he learned that he gets a reward at 5 and he's going to have a tantrum. So only when the plan has been formally changed is when it should be done a little bit differently. Communicate with others, communicate with each other. You guys are your most valuable resource in the classroom. You are your student's most valuable resource outside of the classroom. If I'm walking down the hallway and there's a student on the floor and there's an aide with him, I'm not interfering. I'm asking, do you need help? Because maybe the plan for that student is to ignore him. Maybe it's not, and she does need help. But before, if their team is planning to ignore this student, and here I come like, oh, hey, Joe, I saw you on the baseball field yesterday. There goes the plan. Because he just was like, oh, I just got attention for sitting here on the floor. Somebody's talking to me. And I had no idea about the plan because I didn't ask. And I'm gonna probably upset his whole team now because I came and, who knows what's gonna happen. I reinforced his behavior unintentionally. So, and if somebody's doing that to you, don't hesitate to say like, no, we got it. Like, don't be afraid to communicate what the students' needs are. You are their biggest advocate. You know them, you're with them all day. I'm going to actually make this our last slide to have a few more, and I'm happy to always talk about behavior with you or a student who's challenging, any kind of strategies that you want to talk through. But in the interest of time, I'm going to make this our last, but feel free to email me, call me. I am at Woodward Parkway on Thursdays. I am at Salzman on Wednesdays. I am at Albany on Tuesdays, and Howitt Mondays and Fridays. So you can always stop in, and I'm happy to talk with you, but I'll just end here. This is a big one. Kids do well if they can versus kids do well if they want to. I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who doesn't want to do well. Right? I come to work every day and I want to do a good job, and I know that you do too. And it goes for the kids as well. So when you see a kid who is having a hard time, it's not because they want to be having a hard time. Chances are they don't feel good about what they're doing. they are embarrassed, their friends are looking at them, their teachers have now created a situation in their own heads where this guy's having a problem and it could happen again. It doesn't feel good. So what do they need, really, is the question when you look at them. Like, what is it that's interfering with their success right now? Are they having a problem that they need to solve? You're their support. Help them to solve the problem. And not only the problem that's in the moment, but give them the tools and strategies to solve it next time when you're not there. Because they are going on, and our goal is not just to support them in the here and now, but to give them the tools to be able to execute these positive strategies for themselves when they leave. They have to, like I said, come into work sometimes with stress and figure out how to cope. It starts here. So if you see a student and he's having a problem, it's not because he wants to. He needs something to support him so that he can access the success and flexibility. How do we teach kids to be flexible? We are really good at teaching kids how to use schedules and organizational materials and how to follow a picture schedule, but how do we teach them to build flexibility in that? Because things change, right? So if you have an opportunity where a kid is melting or has his head on the desk because now something's changed on his schedule and he doesn't know what to do, so he just puts his head down, like, use it as a teaching moment. It's a great time to say, like, oh yeah, things change, like, that's frustrating. When things change, although you're overwhelmed, these are the things that we can do to make ourselves feel better. Maybe we can come back to it later. Anything, you know the kid. I'm not going to stand here and tell you all the catchphrases because you know them and you know the students. But keep these are the skills that they really need when they're not meeting with success. They need to learn to cope and to regulate their emotions. They need to learn to solve problems, and they need to learn flexibility. So on that note, I will thank you again for coming and participating. And if you need any talking or guidance or anything with the behavior, don't hesitate to stop.